Okay. At this time, I'd like to call to order the virtual work session. If you'll rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Mr. Chambers, if you'll call roll call.
Mr. Hilberg. I heard a here. Did you guys hear here? Okay. Ms. Parkhurst.
Here.
Mr. Ross. Here. Mr. Skidmore.
Here.
Ms. Pavlik.
Here.
Thank you.
I would just like to note to anybody who is watching, Brian Hilberg is here he's here virtually. I would like, are there any additions, removals, or modifications to the agenda? Okay. Hearing.
We'll make a motion
Okay.
to approve tonight's agenda.
Okay. I'll second. Mr. Chambers?
Mr. Ross. Aye. Ms. Pavlik.
Aye.
Mr. Hilberg. Ms. Parkhurst.
Aye.
And Mr. Skidmore.
Aye.
Thank you.
At this time, I will turn it over to Mr. Sable.
Good evening, everyone. And before I jump into our work session agenda here, I did want to congratulate our athletic teams. We've had a couple big weeks of athletics in the district. Just the end of last week, our girls soccer team lost a hard-fought game. Boys football made it further than ever in the history of the school district and beat out two very historically tough state teams in the process of doing that. Boys soccer, big win. I think they took the early lead and got the big win. So they're going to be moving to the next round. And this coming weekend, our boys cross-country team is going to compete in states, and we also have a member of our girls cross-country team who's going to be going down to compete in states as well. And I just wanted to mention that we do have an action item that was just added today, and that is for our cross-country team for their overnight trip down to Columbus to compete at the state level. As usual, I wanted to provide the board and the community with a COVID update. And I did send out a fairly detailed communication last week to all of our staff, as well as our parents, and just wanted to reiterate and potentially clarify some of the information that's in that communication. And a lot of this is based off of feedback that I've gotten since that communication has gone out from parents. Want to note that our return to school plan has been ever evolving. When we first set it up this summer, we purposely set up a plan that was going to be adjustable. When we were mandated to put a plan together for the state, we were working off of little information and only the information we had at the time. Since then, we've gained a lot of knowledge over the course of the last few months, as well as a very collaborative relationship with the health department as well as Medina County superintendents. We meet on a weekly basis. I'll actually be meeting with that group tomorrow morning. Early on, the only clear indicator that we had was the county color system, which I think was fairly new right around the time when we were putting our plans together. Since then, we've been able to work with the health department and collect our own district data. That's given us many more information points in order to make good decisions about staying online or going online or keeping our students in school. I think it's important at this point in time that we take more of a surgical approach towards these decisions. What's very relieving to see, and we're not just seeing this, but districts across the state are seeing this, is that COVID spread has been occurring at very low rates within school districts. That doesn't mean there haven't been any COVID cases, as I know our parents know. We have had COVID cases. We've had quarantines as well. What that means is that, generally speaking, students and staff aren't getting COVID from attending school. Most of the time, the situation is that individuals are getting COVID or are becoming infected through social interactions outside of school. It could be something as simple as a parent becomes ill with COVID and then passes it on to the family. I think the most common scenario that we are seeing is group gatherings, whether it's a gathering at an individual's house or a gathering at another location. And here's where I'm going to plead with our parents and our community. I know I've done this before at several other board meetings. Obviously, we need to find a way to continue to function during this COVID pandemic. But while we're doing that, I strongly encourage and ask our parents, our community, and our students to please follow the appropriate procedures with social distancing, hand washing, face mask wearing, to make sure that we are safe when we are doing that. Our goal is to keep our students in school, and it's going to take the help of all of our families in order to make that possible. My biggest concern in regards to a potential closure is if we get into a situation where we have a high number of quarantines or COVID cases within a single classroom or even a single building. So that relates to the surgical approach that I mentioned. As opposed to putting the entire district online, we could be in a situation where we're looking at a classroom, a grade level, or a building, as opposed to the district, depending on what we're seeing within our district data. Currently, with our data, we are seeing that it is widespread across the district, so it's not isolated to any one building or facility. And that is really in line with the information we're getting from the health department, that with the current increases we're seeing, it is through wide community spread. So I really appreciate everybody's help in helping us to keep our students in school. In my communication, I also shared that I anticipate at this time, with the information I have right now, that we will not be going online during the holiday season. The current data just doesn't support us doing that, both in the district as well as in the community. The reason why I'm cautious about the way I say that is because it was literally 4 weeks ago that the county was yellow. We're now orange, high incident, and have been on the verge of going red, high incident. So a lot can change in a short period of time. I've mentioned in the past, I recognize that's an area of frustration, not knowing what's going to happen. And believe me, that's a frustration for me as well. I would like nothing better than to be able to make a long-term commitment. Not making a long-term commitment, though, is what's keeping our students in school. So we can evaluate on a weekly basis and make the best decisions for our students. I did want to mention MODA as well. This has been a common question lately as we're heading towards the end of the first semester. We will continue with MODA for the second half of the school year. We are going to provide families opportunities to stay in MODA if they choose to return to school if they choose to, or to sign up for MODA for the second semester. Our curriculum department will be sending out a communication as well as a sign-up form for the second semester. That will be coming out in the next week or two. Our deadline for that is going to be the end of November, early December. And I know I just sat here and talked about needing to make decisions week to week, and I know this puts pressure on our families. The issue is that we need to know what the enrollment is going to be in our buildings, as well as the enrollment that's going to be in MODA, because it could have a drastic effect on our return to school plans. We will provide parents updates and information as those decisions are made. I did ask Tina Cassidy, our Director of Instruction, if she could give the board an update on MODA. I wasn't planning on this at first, but we were in a curriculum meeting this morning, and they were sharing lots of good things that I think would be good for the board to hear regarding our online programming.
So we have been working off of our parent surveys that we sent out that I've gone over with you guys before. And we've been trying to incorporate more of the suggestions that we've been hearing. And again, one of the biggest suggestions was that people felt like they needed more support at the secondary level. And so we have been slowly adding in more and more supports for kids. So we have always had consulting teachers. One of the comments was that and our consulting teachers are teachers who are working, and so they would do their consulting after the workday. Some parents said that they would really appreciate having some consulting teachers available during the day, so we were able to find some people to help with that. We used our home instructors, our home instruction tutors, as well as some other teachers who were retired or not working. We also have added another layer now, which is kind of exciting and is going really well. We have student teachers from Akron working with our students. They are adding study skills sessions for students, and so we had last week was our first one. They did a time management session, which was very well attended. 60 students over 2 days were a part of that. They're going to do those weekly. Students can volunteer to come, knowing that they need help with those study skills. Or if we are noticing that students are struggling, then we can ask them to attend. So we're really excited about that and grateful for the collaboration with Akron. Next week is note-taking, so that's our next topic. So right now at the high school, for extra supports added, we have started homerooms, very similar to what the middle school is doing. We have those sessions starting, and we are looking to add some study session groups for the high school students as well. So those are kind of some of the exciting things going on in MODA. And then as Erin said, those emails will be coming out in the next couple weeks, asking parents their intentions for next semester. Even parents who would like to enter or have their students enter into MODA second semester, they will be able to do so. Those commitment forms that will be in that email will be due by December 3rd. And that's again so that we can make some staffing decisions. Any questions?
As we continue to reassess what we're doing as a district, obviously we've got many new initiatives because of the pandemic, and we've actively been trying to make updates and changes as we move forward, and it's nice to see MODA's come a long way, especially with our student support. I want to turn things over to Dr. Kwolek, as she's overseeing the high school. And in addition to trying to improve MODA, we've been looking at the hybrid model as well.
I think we're going to try to work on my PowerPoint, so I'll talk through it. We're having just a little technical difficulties, but we'll post it on the web so that you can see it, and I'll just read a little bit more from it, so I'll get you all the information anyway. So we did a survey with our parents, and then we did a second survey with our students to gather feedback about the hybrid model. So we got 663 parent responses from our survey, which is a really good turnout. It's more than we've had in the past from a survey, so we were very pleased with that. So the first question we asked parents was, do you feel your child has been provided enough teacher instruction time in the current hybrid model? So 63.2% of parents said no, and 36.8% said yes. So it's about 60-40, 60% no, 40% yes. And that is, again, were you provided enough instruction time in a hybrid model? Some of the comments were that consistency in posting lessons needs to be improved. So, and we're hearing a lot of that, and that is one of the main things we're working on. We talked a lot in our teacher leadership meeting, Mrs. Cassidy and I. Kids will get a number of updates, and I know that for my child as well, on a Friday night. But if the due date's not posted, kids were feeling like, oh my gosh, these assignments could be due Saturday morning or Monday morning. And so if you have a more anxious student or a high achieving student, if the due dates aren't also posted with the assignment and the teacher's loading them on a Friday night, you're not necessarily sure when they're due. So that's definitely an area of improvement and something we're looking at in terms of posting assignments. I know Mrs. Cassidy is planning on some professional development with the teachers in posting assignments in Google. Some other comments, students are having a difficult time focusing and organizing themselves. I think what we've learned more than anything in the hybrid model is that when kids aren't in school 5 days a week, there's not a forced system of organization and structure, and so they have a hard time organizing and structuring themselves. And so I know Erin's talked to some parents, as Tina and I have talked to some parents, and Mina and Jim as well. I think what we've learned is that what it really comes down to is the kids who are really organized and on top of things have done okay with those 2 days. Kids who have some trouble organizing themselves are having a lot of trouble with those 2 days. And so I thought that comment kind of spoke to a lot of the comments we got. Another parent said need to be in school 5 days to keep them organized and on pace. So again, that comment about if you're not in school, you're not organized and on pace. Another comment was 100 minutes per week per subject of instruction time is not enough. So in general, a comment about not enough instruction time. And at the end, I'll talk more about what we're doing to use these comments to improve. I want to let parents know, too, I was talking to Erin about this as well. One comment was, you don't read these anyways, so I don't know why we give them. And I really want parents to know we do read them. Mrs. Cassidy and I went through every single comment. So we do appreciate these and find them helpful, or we wouldn't do the survey. So I just wanted to make sure parents knew we do read these and we do find them helpful. Oh, good. So we'll be up shortly. So then some of the positives about instruction, because I think it's interesting for as there are many more people who were not happy with the amount of instructional time, there were lots of people who were happy as well. So again, we do realize 60-40, so more people would like to see more instruction time, but it's important to note that 40% of parents feel like it's an appropriate amount of instructional time. And those parents said she uses her virtual time to do assignments. It works great, obviously meaning their daughter. And then I think these 2 days will help my child in college as a self-dependent student. So again, I think what we're doing mimics a lot like college, and so that was one perspective from a parent. The next slide is about, have you found Monday's online learning day to be helpful to prepare your child for the upcoming week? So again, Mondays is 20 minutes of each class in the schedule. And the intention of Monday was it's the only day the teacher has the entire class. And so it's supposed to be a preview of the week. You're front loading the materials. You're sharing the information. 58.7% of parents said no, and 41.3% said yes. So again, we're at a 60-40 split if Mondays were helpful to parents. Some of the comments include 15 minutes is not enough time. Our kids learn 2 days, not 5. So parents feeling like really kids are getting 2 days of instruction and Monday doesn't count. Some people were saying, why not a full day of online instruction? And it looks like the PowerPoint's up so you guys can follow me here. I wish they had a third day of learning. Too short and need to be longer with more information communicated, and should be as long as a regular period. So those kind of summarize the feedback we've been getting in a nice way. Then on the flip side, some of the comments were, I feel like Monday is more helpful than last spring. Monday has allowed kids to prepare for the week and plan. It sets a great structure for the week to follow. It's a great idea, and it's a nice synopsis of the upcoming week. It's interesting, too, when I share the student surveys, what they thought as well. So then the final question we ask parents is, have you found that your child is using their 2 virtual learning days productively? So those are the days. The virtual learning days would be the days they aren't in person and not Monday. And 55.8% of parents said yes, and 44.2% said no. So the majority of parents feel like the kids are using those virtual learning days productively. Some of the comments were, my son is not getting nearly the amount of work he would get in class. Again, some people saying they're not getting enough work. It's been a crash course in effective time management. Again, I think that's a big theme. The quantity of assignments is overwhelming to my students. She works all day and evening with little breaks. I wanted you to know there was probably a split of people saying it's not enough work and people saying it's way too much work. So again, I think it's interesting that for some students it's too much work and for other students it's not enough work. And then my son is very self-motivated. He keeps school hours for his virtual days. So again, I think the kids that are able to do that, and we would call this the qualitative research part of surveys, so we can have the numbers and the percentages, but the comments kind of give you some qualitative data. And I think what we're finding in that is this really points out the kids who can't stay organized and have trouble with time management. The hybrid model really emphasizes and exemplifies that. Another person said, I hope this model continues and my daughter is less stressed about school. So then when we get to the student survey, similar questions, and it's interesting. We had about 470 students reply, which is really good for a high school survey. Do you feel you've been provided enough teacher instruction time? Remember, for parents, it was 60-40 with the no. The students say 56% say yes, we've been given enough instruction time, and they're saying yes. 44% said no. And I think, as Tina would share with you, it was very similar with the other surveys where the students were feeling more comfortable than their parents were in the model. Some of the student comments, on the 2 virtual days, I spend much more time doing work than I would if we were in class. The work has almost doubled since we returned to hybrid. I feel like the 2 days are just an off day and I get nothing done. So again, the 2 extremes. Regular school just helped me have a better schedule. So again, that organization. And then the 2 virtual days are okay since it's been very stressful with everything happening right now. I've noticed that this has really helped my mental health tremendously. I get lots of time to study and finish homework. I feel a lot less stressed. And that was a theme in this survey too for the students. They said this is a lot less academic stress on me, the hybrid model, and I like it a lot better because it's less stressful, which I was surprised actually to see. Then, have you found Monday's online day to be helpful to prepare you for the upcoming week? 65.5% said no and 34.5% said yes. So overwhelmingly, we know we need to look at a change for Mondays, and we think we're almost at the place where we found an answer for that. We should have an answer by the end of this week that we can communicate with the board and then get out to parents. We know we need to increase instruction time and do something different with Mondays. So both those will have a solution by the end of this week that we'll then be able to share. So in terms of Mondays, kids said they're a waste of time. I don't feel like I'm learning anything new. Explaining the week could be done in an email. I was laughing. This is sometimes what people say about our meetings sometimes, about staff meetings or other meetings. Like, you could have sent this in an email. You didn't need to spend my time on it. 20 minutes is not enough time to provide instruction. Other kids said it helps me get an overview of the week so I'm prepared for what is to come, and it gets me on track for the week. So other kids liked the structure and the front loading. And then again, the last question, do you feel that you're using your 2 virtual days productively? 75.3% said yes, and 24.7% said no. So again, the only question that differed was the first one in terms of do you feel like you're getting enough instruction time? Otherwise, the parents and the students were pretty even. Student comments, I'd rather be 5 days. I was excited for hybrid, but it is disappointing as the work has almost doubled, causing stress. The hybrid model would be more ideal if students had more teacher instruction time. And then other kids said, I think we should keep the model like it is. Please stop switching models. It's stressing kids out. So remember, they've been in virtual, now they're in hybrid. I personally love the hybrid because I believe it's better for my mental health because I'm less stressed but also still learning. And then this was one of my favorites. I definitely don't hate it. If a few specific teachers lowered the workload they gave me, I would say it's great. So I thought that one was important to include because it kind of summarizes it up. So I guess I just want to share with parents and students, we really do appreciate your feedback. And so what we're looking to do based on this feedback is change Mondays, increase instruction time, and look at training, providing some more in-service with the teachers about providing assignments in a more structured way so that kids are clear when assignments are posted. And then I don't want people to forget, I had someone else ask me, we are still looking at bringing kids back 5 days and how we can make that happen. We did not forget about that. We're continuing to work on that. So I didn't know if you guys had any questions.
Dr. Kwolek, with the assignments or the students not knowing when they're due, is that more a question or a concern of the parents or the students?
And Mrs. Cass, you might be able to add, I got it from parents, mostly of really anxious students, that like when the teacher would post a bunch of assignments on Friday, the parents felt like the kids started working on it thinking it was due. But when I would go talk to the teacher or have the student talk to the teacher, it was very clear that it wasn't due. So I think kids were just having trouble reading Google Classroom or figuring it out. But as a parent, what you saw was an anxious kid whose phone was beeping incessantly because they were getting all these notifications. Because you get a notification when the assignment's posted. You get a notification when any time a teacher goes in there, you get a beep or a notification. So, and we don't have a way to turn it off, so you just get one notification. Am I explaining that right, Mrs. Cassidy? I think I am.
Yeah, I think you can either turn it all off or have it all on, and I think that sometimes, like she said, gets overwhelming.
Thank you. I can relate to that a little bit in my own home because my husband will, not so much with the Google alerts, but with the app alerts, or they'll have missing assignments. Mm-hmm. So then my husband's asking my kids, hey, did you have things you didn't turn in? And they always know when they're due. No, it's just because of the way it has to get loaded, I believe, in the progress book. But since he's not as familiar, he thinks they haven't done something, and so that's why I was just curious.
And a lot of it's done well and the due dates are clear. So I don't think this is an overwhelming issue, but I think it's something we could work on and improve.
Dr. Kwolek, I just want to comment. It's appreciated how this is evolving because 7 months ago, 8 months ago, whatever, in March, I mean, we were told, shut down. And a week later, come back, but in a different way. Mm-hmm. And you did that. And now we're evolving into making that better. So I think it's much appreciated. And you're using feedback from not only your experience and everybody's, but the community, the parents, and the kids. So it's nice. We're working on continuing to get it better. It's much appreciated. I appreciate all the hard work you guys are doing. I just wanted to shout out to you.
Thank you. And I would say the staff, too, the teachers have really adjusted their instruction tremendously.
Dr. Kwolek, I'd just like to make a couple of comments. Going back to the second bullet for the parent response about students are having a difficult time focusing and organizing themselves. I think school, the routine of school, going to school, that helps the students. I mean, it's human nature comes into play too, as far as nobody is really born knowing how to be organized, but it's the life experiences that helps to form that. And going to school, I think, is so much a part of that, with the routine, the discipline, getting up every morning at the same time. All of that really is part of the educational process. So granted, I totally respect and I get it that it is definitely a little glimpse into the future about what it's going to be like going off to college. But the maturity level of high schoolers are definitely, here, and college maturity level is here. So it's, in those years at the high school level, growing and closing that gap. So I guess what I'm getting back to is definitely the hybrid model with the online learning has grown leaps and bounds from what we had to gather quickly together back in the spring. But I definitely, having a student at the high school myself, know what valuable that discipline and that routine is when it comes to education and helping them grow.
And I appreciate the presentation. I was whispering to Mr. Sable during a little portion there, Dr. Kwalik, about the, because I don't have a student in the system, they've all graduated, just exactly how those days are breaking down. And I mean, I gather that students are obviously in the school 2 days a week. So whether it be Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, whatever those are. And then I'm understanding Monday then is this overview presentation that a teacher would give on the assignments for the week. That would be a 20-minute presentation for each class. If that's, if you don't mind talking, just for people that are watching this that aren't in tune to exactly what the definition of the hybrid is and how that all plays out, I appreciate it.
Yeah.
Thanks.
So Monday, we run the students' regular schedule, and they're online virtually for 20 minutes. And that's the time they see their whole class together, the teachers. And then students are either gold or green, and they either come Tuesday, Thursday, or Wednesday, Friday. So that's how it runs right now. And again, we're looking at changing Monday. And the two things we're looking at is either extending that Monday time, again, to increase the instructional minutes, or having kids come an additional day. Again, based on the feedback from the survey from students and staff. I mean, students and parents, and staff too.
It's just amazing, like, echoing what Ron said with just the transition that went on. And then, my mind's just sitting here thinking it'll be interesting to see when we're beyond this pandemic, what best practices from this will be picked up and implemented, because I think we're going to have all of these devices that we'll probably have and maintain and going forward in the future. And so how we can, in the future, make education better because of having these other resources, and when we're able to get kids back in classrooms with normal class sizes. So it's amazing all the work you've done. And thank you for the survey. It's great to have it broken out by students and by parents. It's interesting. The parents seem a little more concerned than the students feel that they're getting enough instruction, and to see those nuances between the two groups. So thank you.
And then the only other thing I wanted to let you know, as we continue to get feedback, I've shared with staff. I have not shared with parents yet, but I wanted to let the board know we are looking to change the high school calendar in November, that week of Thanksgiving. Again, Monday would be a virtual learning day, and Tuesday the gold group would have come to school. We're going to make Monday the green group comes to school. So again, that way you're not missing that week. There's only school Monday and Tuesday, so the green group wouldn't have gotten instruction. So we'll send that out to parents tomorrow, so they have a whole month to arrange transportation if they need it. But the teachers felt very strongly, they brought it forward, that they want to see both groups of kids that week. So it'll add another instructional day. So I wanted to make sure I let the board know about that as well.
Our next item is a strategic plan and portrait update. At our last work session, Tina provided an in-depth presentation regarding the strategic planning process, as well as the portrait of a graduate. I think we expressed excitement to be talking about curriculum and instruction and what we're mainly here for, and to be able to get these initiatives back on the track. Last year, I did present a contract to the board for the portrait of a graduate, and it was approved. And obviously, since then, there's been a lot of changes. That original contract didn't only include the portrait, but it also included helping us with communications and surveys through the redistricting and the facilities projects, which are currently on hold. In addition, it included doing an update to the current strategic plan. With all the changes, we met with the impact group and discussed with them heading in a different direction that better meets our needs for where we're at now, especially with the pandemic. In terms of strategic plan, I feel like we're at a point where we're ready to actually look at a new plan. Technically, we have another year, and that's something we would have started next year. But I think it makes sense to do it now, especially while we're doing a portrait update, because most of that strategic plan has been completed. I did mention at the last work session, I do anticipate the strategic plan being different. We were bringing back a lot of programming and revitalizing different aspects of our curriculum in our district with the last plan. With this next one, I think we're going to be taking a big step forward. So to have a third-party outside perspective, especially when it comes to surveys as well as leading discussion groups to get honest feedback, is very important. I asked the impact group to put together another quote for us. I did anticipate it being higher because we're asking them to do more with the strategic planning process rather than a simple update. And their quote came in approximately $11,000 higher than the initial quote. I believe it's at $35,000 and the initial quote was $24,000. I wanted to make sure that I had a comparison to provide to the board as well. So I also reached out to Battelle for Kids, which is the organization we're utilizing through SOAR and have seen much success with. That quote for the same work came back at $65,000. I just received that quote on Friday afternoon, so we have not yet had an opportunity to really dive into it and compare the two programs. Obviously, Battelle has a lot of expertise that they can offer in doing this. This is what Battelle does. I do have concerns about the cost of that contract, though. So I would anticipate presenting the impact group contract to the board unless we're able to pare down the Battelle contract. Either way, I think this is a very positive direction for the district and the next step. And even if we don't go with Battelle, we are working with them through SOAR, which is another contract I want to present to the board next month. And I think there would still be feedback and input coming in through Battelle during that process, whether it's directly or indirectly through our district committee group. And now that I'm bringing up the other SOAR contract, I did want to mention, I know I've shared with the board that contract is $8,000. It's actually increased to $9,500, and the reason why is because I think it's important that Dr. Kwolek, as assistant superintendent and as the leader of our high school, is directly involved in that process. So I've asked Tina to have her added to the group, which is the increase in that cost. In terms of the two strategic plan and portrait contracts, I was hoping to present those to the board tonight, but just timing-wise, that wasn't possible. I will be providing those to all the board members before the end of this week, the contracts in full, so you have an opportunity to take a look at them and ask any questions prior to the regular board meeting. Any questions in regards to portrait or strategic planning?
Aaron,
Yes.
you might have said this, and I may have missed it. So you like the impact group? That's the one that you think we're going with? Is that what I'm hearing?
I like the impact group's price.
Okay.
I don't dislike the impact group. They both have their strengths. They both have their weaknesses.
Okay.
We do have a relationship, a long-term relationship with the impact group, and have already started some preliminary work with them on this process before things got shut down in the spring. So I think moving forward with the impact group would be fairly seamless. The thing that Battelle offers is they are curriculum experts. That's what they do. They work with curriculum and advances in education. So their viewpoint on that is a little bit different. We do, however, in our district, as we've talked about before, we've got some very strong professional educators with good background that I know, if we're with the impact group or with Battelle, is going to be important to that process. But right now, the financial piece, when you're talking almost double the price, I wouldn't feel comfortable presenting the Battelle contract to the board.
Okay, one other thing. So, you remember when we started the strategic plan process, when you first got here, and we spent about a year going around to all the community groups where we went to them, like at a building or a business or something. And I always thought that was good because the people got to see you and us, if we were able to make the meetings, and we got to see them and talk and interact, Is these groups, like the Impact and Battelle, are they going to continue that, or is there an idea to do it a different way through computer?
Well, we are going to continue that. We will still be directly involved in all of those meetings as well as the process. The meetings will be held virtually, and it's because of the COVID pandemic. Our timeline is to begin this process in January and have a completed strategic plan by the end of this school year, so we can have it in place for next school year as well as with the portrait. I have talked to other districts who did their portrait process, strategic planning process, actually last year during the spring and did virtually, and actually saw a lot of success, that they were able to draw in more parents because they didn't have to come into the school to meet. They were able to just log on at home after dinner or before dinner and take part in the process.
Okay.
So we'll definitely assess it as it gets rolling to see if we need to make any adjustments. But I really do think it's going to be positive. I've been holding my superintendent lunches every other week, and I've consistently had 15 to 20 people. So you compare that to the community chats we used to do where sometimes we'd have 2 people. So I think people are embracing the technology and just finding it convenient that they can log in from work or home or wherever they are and take part in what's happening.
Okay, thank you.
And next up is policies. Last board meeting, we presented policies for a first reading. And I'd like to have Dr. Kwolek review those policies with the board. She is the, she stepped away. Okay. When she gets back, for her to present those items, she's the chair of our policy committee as the assistant superintendent for the district. But what I'll do is we can move on to the next items until she returns. Item number 6 for discussion is digital versus paper report cards. A communication was sent out to our secondary families that we were transitioning to electronic report cards at the upper grade levels. Currently, we have continued paper report cards at the elementary level, that's K through 5. Our intent, though, was to transition them to electronic report cards as well. We are actually kind of trailing behind surrounding districts in regards to making this transition. Of course, part of the reason for this is a cost savings piece in regards to personnel having to print them, package them, and distribute them, as well as a cost of resources to do that. One of the bigger reasons, though, that I believe a lot of districts are making this transition is because the way grading works is very different than it used to be. Parents and students are able to monitor grades in real time. So usually their report card, they already know what they're getting on their report card before they even get it. I know we had some board members that want to have further discussion, so I wanted to present this item.
I just want, originally when the email came out, it was I thought it was for the entire district, and that's where I contacted Mr. Sable on that. And then I was glad to hear that for the lower levels, that they are still on paper. I was just particularly at the lower levels, and when it was mentioned just now about checking grades and stuff, at the lower levels, there are no grades. Like from K to 2, there are pluses and minus, check marks and things like that. So to be able to monitor that online, I'm not sure how do you do that. It's easier to see the A's, the B's, the percentages. Excuse me. I'm just concerned that we've taken away one more opportunity to keep the parents engaged in their child's education, particularly at the younger grade levels. Cost should not be a driving factor in every decision. Sometimes you need to have that, you need to spend that money to get the benefits back from it. It used to be parents had to sign off receipt of their student's report card way back when. And to me, that's an opportunity to prompt discussions too. The kids are all excited to show mom and dad, look I've got this. And so I had some curiosity about why that changed. And again, if it's easier for who, well, it cost savings for the district, but what we're saving, or are we exchanging, are we losing in that human interaction between the parent and the child? We have to remember we serve a wide variety of families, not just the technologically advanced ones. I've said it before, technology is a tool, not a method. It's not infallible. For example, I didn't receive the email about the parent survey, so I was never able to answer that secondary for the high school. And we're working on that. I know that there are other parents too that didn't receive that survey request. So I just had concerns again. I felt better when I learned that it was still paper for that, the younger grades. Because again, just thinking back to when your kids were that age, and report card day was a big day. They wanted to show, they wanted to be the first to show their parents. So again, just an opportunity for discussions between the parent and the child, sense of pride, throw that report card up there on the refrigerator for all to see. Again, I understand with the higher grades, having it electronically, but again, I would hate to see the lower grades lose that opportunity.
Erin, I just wanted to know, if people are having issues with emails, and I'll let Amy jump into, I know I've gotten a couple, and Erin, you have too. There are some things with it going to spam and some other places. So if any parents didn't get my survey or aren't getting emails from the high school, if you want to email me, then Amy and I have been looking to make sure you're on the list for high school emails, and then we're trying to figure out why it's not getting to you. So I would encourage anyone who's not getting the high school parent emails to let us know so we can figure out what the issue is. And Amy, I don't know if you want to add anything.
Yeah, when it comes to the email, people can just email me specifically, and we'll take a look at that. But Chris is correct. In some cases, especially with Google Mail, there have been some issues where they're either going to spam, or it's going to be important for people to do what they call whitelist certain domains, and I can give those to them. And I also have a video that shows people what to do, but it's really important for people to check their spam folders.
Right. I've also, because that was, again, one of the first things I always do is check the spam, but I have a feeling that it might be, I think it might be an Armstrong problem, as far as, because your records are showing it is getting out of our network and going to Armstrong, but somewhere around there, I think it's bouncing around in all of their servers and stuff. So perhaps reaching out to them and asking a tech maybe to do some troubleshooting over there might be a good idea.
correct. If you have another provider outside of Google, I would absolutely ask them to just work with them to figure out why they're not going through the firewall.
And Ryan, let me know too, there's a video on the tech webpage for how to add the filters to spam if parents want to, if you're tech savvy and want to look on our Medina City Schools tech webpage.
He also put a video on his tech page about how to print the report card. So if parents grades 6 through 12 would like to print the report card, they can do that too. So that's all on there for them.
Will there be, and I think there's aspects that definitely make a lot of sense to have it digital, so I'm not opposed to that. I think that's, especially during a pandemic, I mean, we're trying to do more and more things digitally so that we don't have paper that we're passing and so forth. So it makes a lot of sense. I guess my other question with it would be, is there a way to monitor if families have logged in to look at the grades at some point? Is there a way to track that? And if they haven't, then would there be possibly, 50 of them that just need printed off and dropped in the mail or something to the families? But I think there's a lot of benefit, especially with situations where the mother and father are in two different households, to be able to get it out that way and they both can see it. I think there's a lot of benefits to have it digitally that way. But I again, based on kind of your conversation here, I'm listening with, firewalls and whitelisting domains and all that business. If there are, report cards that don't get accessed, is there a way to kind of monitor that and take a look at that? I guess is my question.
And those emails and firewalls shouldn't be an issue with report cards because parents are logging into a site. So they're not being emailed. Parents are just logging into it, not just, but parents are logging into a site. So there wouldn't be issues with firewalls or accessing. If we were emailing parents the report card, that would be an issue, but this way they log in.
That's good. So is there a way then to be able to know that the parents did log in? And if they didn't, is there a way to print out a list, hey, there's 50 of them that didn't get accessed, is what I'm asking, I guess.
Well, Rob, I'm going to give you a parent's perspective, and then if anyone from the administration wants to add. But I think that the Access to Progress book this year has been much better than Blackboard in the past because I have to log in with my child. My child actually has to log in, and I view it with him. So it is a great opportunity to have that conversation and have that exchange. Okay, how are we doing in here? What's going on? Versus before with Blackboard, I could log in whenever I wanted, but because it was whenever I wanted, my child might not be there with me, and we wouldn't be able to have that conversation. And I also think our teachers are great, that if there's a child that's not turning in assignments, that is having trouble, they're going to reach out to us. So even if the parent perhaps doesn't see the actual report card, because the grades are real time, they can see those grades whenever. Sometimes the report card is even too late because if there was a problem, you want to address it before the report card comes up. And that's where I think our teachers have been great about reaching out to say, hey, there's something going on here, and having that conversation because it is real time. So I see a definite positive benefit to it. That's just been my own personal experience.
I just want to make sure that we don't lose that human element, that human part of education, especially again at the lower grades. So much of that in the beginning years, the formative years of school, we definitely need those parents working as a team with the students, with the buildings. So again, technology is great. I just don't over-relying on it, and or technology can also desensitize. So that's what I just want to make sure that we don't lose when it comes to our younger ages students.
Maybe I misunderstood. Is it my understanding from what you said, Mrs. Parkhurst, then that the parent doesn't have a direct access, that they need to use the child's access? Is that correct?
There are two ways that you can log in to see your child's grades. You can have your own login through Blackboard, and the directions for that are also on the technology page, and that is the same as last year, and previous years. The second way would be if you use your child's login straight through Progress Book. So Blackboard, when you log into Blackboard, you view your child's grades in Progress Book through Blackboard. Kids can log in straight through Progress Book. So you could do it both ways. And I know that the high school sent out directions for both ways, and I believe the middle schools did as well.
My concern would be, though, of situations of where a student maybe is not performing well and doesn't want mom or dad to log in with them and see what their progress is at that point. So that would be a concern, to make sure that there is a way that each parent would be furnished a username and password that's unique to be able to get into that system. And as I say, it'd be nice if there'd be some way that the district would have some idea that some adult has logged in to see how the child's doing. Because again, some kids, that's great if parents look over the shoulder. I think that, because obviously, I know you're very involved in your students' well-being, and you're a great parent. But I mean, not all parents are going to be quite that involved with their student. And so that's the concern, where you do make a good point, Val, that this goes to the house and it's mailed or however it's delivered in the past. Again, I see both sides of it, but it does concern me if we're relying on the student to give the parent access, or if it's confusing and there's multiple systems and we don't have one system in particular. That is a little concerning.
I apologize if I misspoke. I know there is still the Blackboard login. I've been logging in with my child because since they all have devices now, and it's just part of their device, it's just easy to log in with them. Prior to this, the students were responsible for bringing their report cards home anyways. So if they didn't want mom or dad to see it, they wouldn't. I mean, at least now there's actually, I think it's easier access than in the past, because they could have lost it on the way home. So.
And I think the parent login through Progress Book is something very valid that we need to look into. I can share that in a previous district, we didn't have Blackboard, and we just used Progress Book. And we did supply parent logins for Progress Book. So the capability is out there. District is quarter the size of ours, but the capability is out there. And also we have our board curriculum committee meeting next week, and this is going to be a topic of discussion at that as well.
Aaron, can I just ask, I'm listening to everyone. I'm just trying to keep it simple. Can't we just have both? People that want the paper. Now, Rob makes a good point, the touching and all that with the virus, but can't we, if people want paper, they can get it, and if they don't, they could have the digital. Can't we do both?
Parents can print off their report card if they want to, or children can print it off. My
we do
son
that?
still printed his off and put it on the refrigerator. He's 14. So.
Okay. Well, Val's point was, it's not printed, it's like handed, from this.
Right, what they're not doing, they used to hand it out during a certain period of class in the high school, and they're not doing that anymore.
Yeah, and we could do that, Ron. We would be printing it for the parents is essentially what we would do.
Okay.
And Ron, I'm just going to be honest, that would be so much more work. We're either going to print them for everyone, or because then how do you figure out who wants a printed one and who doesn't? Then people are hand printing, because we either mass print, or think about it this way, then we're going to have to go in, we're going to have a list of who wants it printed, then go into each individual one and print them versus printing them all. So, and I'm sorry I had to step out for a minute, but I don't know if Tina shared that we're one of the few districts in the state that still was doing paper report cards at the high school and middle school level. So I think it's a good time to transition. Now, if a parent called and says, I don't have a printer, then I don't think we have an issue with printing one for them, but I think we were looking to make that transition.
But you're saying most districts you're finding are all digital?
Yeah, they don't print report cards at this middle school and
Well,
high
you
school.
just, at the middle school and high school level.
Well, I don't know. I didn't want to answer for Tina. That's why I was looking at her. It might be K-12.
In the
interesting.
county, we're the last ones to do paper, and it's 6-12.
Okay, so that's the
There
key.
are some districts, Brunswick does do digital K-12. There are districts that do it, but in the county, most districts are still doing paper K-5.
Okay, so that's the key, right there is a differential. And that, again, I was most concerned with the elementary levels because it's just a different scenario than it is as the kids get older with the progress book coming into play. So again, two different scenarios. I'm concerned with the K through 5, maintaining that paper report card for the younger grades. Because again, it's a different scenario than it is for the older ones.
And we're still K through 5 right now, right, Tina?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. And they'll get it in their envelope, and the parents will sign it just like they always have.
Perfect, thank you.
Again, that parent signature, because that, again, I was afraid that when I had seen that original email, that we were losing that. So I'm glad to hear that they are still signing off on that, because again, it's, again, it's that foundation, that initial level of foundation that's being built at the elementary levels for that. So thank you. I'm glad to hear that. Okay. I'm glad we cleared that up, I think.
And before we throw it back to Chris for policy.
Can I just say one more thing about that?
Sure.
I don't mean to interrupt you. Because I heard what Chris said about it's a lot of work. But I just want to give you an example, not related to report cards, but in the last year, the Gazette, Medina Gazette, it went from 6 days a week to 4 days. And the reason I bring that up, it's always digital, so all 6 days are digital. But there are just some people that just got to have it in their hand, that have to have that print. Like myself, I just, I don't know why that is, but it is. And that's why I asked about having it both ways, because that's what, business, I guess, well, I'd look at the Gazette as an example. They're doing it to please everyone. But I see Dr. Kwolek's point. I just wanted to bring the Gazette idea up in case there was any thought of doing that. But if it's going to be more work and the cost and all that, I guess we got to weigh all that as well. But just wanted to throw that out there. There just are some people that want that print. And I think Val's right. The kids at the younger age are excited to give that to their parents. I know I was when I was a kid. So, of course, that was the 70s, but thank you.
The next item on the agenda is fall recognition ceremonies, and this is in reference to our athletic banquets that we typically hold. Once COVID hit last year in the spring, we had to make adjustments, and the first time we did digital ceremonies was the end of last school year. Since then, the health department the Medina County Health Department has made a recommendation to Medina City Schools to not hold any in-person sports recognition ceremonies. We followed suit with the health department's recommendation, and we weren't intending to hold in-person recognition programs. I know this is difficult for many of our parents, especially with the success we've seen in our athletic programs this past year. Did want to offer opportunity to have further discussion with the board. I did this morning reach out to the other school districts in Medina County to see what they are doing. Every district in the county is doing virtual recognitions for their athletic programs. The one district that was looking at doing more of like an awards type assembly was Black River. And once I sent out my text, they're now reconsidering. So I don't know what Black River is going to be doing now, but.
I think it's obviously, we need to follow recommendations and be safe. I'm just wondering, I'm thinking of something like soccer, and I think the girls are done. They had a great season, but the boys obviously are still playing, and I hope they go all the way to state again. But couldn't the coach be on say, at the stadium and maybe have a bullhorn or something and, announce kids and maybe have parents socially distanced in the stands? I mean, aren't there some ways? I'm just thinking of the different sports. It seems like the band may have done something similar to that already. Would there not be ways like, could football do the same thing, have parents in the stands and have the coaches, socially distant on the field, announcing the players? But again, can't have the food necessarily and all those things. If people privately decide to do something beyond the school, that's their choice. We can't stop that. But as far as if it's sanctioned, is there a way that we can do it safely that's in the manner maybe of the way the sport was performed? Thank you.
Yeah, and I think that's what Black River was planning on doing, and I know that I've had some initial conversation with people about potentially doing that as well. I've been thinking about this quite a bit the last couple days, and I think we need to think outside the box and make sure we are appropriately recognizing our students. And I haven't had a chance to meet with Todd Hock yet, but I was even thinking of some things like a senior recognition for all of our athletic programs at some point in the year when we're able to move on from these COVID regulations. I know for sure if our soccer team goes to state, we need to do something to celebrate that at some point. So right now I'm feeling like, I don't know that veering away from the virtual recognitions is the best way to go, but thinking more outside of the box of how we can recognize our kids when we're able to do it the way we want to do it. I think one of the concerns I have heard about doing the stadium assembly type presentation is that some of our coaches think it's actually less personal than doing it virtually, because virtually they have the individual students and our parents directly logged in versus being spread out in the stands. So there has been some conversation with that.
And I think, Rob, what the coaches would tell you, they did senior nights, so that like football had a senior night, cheerleaders, soccer, so they did the senior night like that, and they liked the virtual banquet because they can give a speech about each individual student athlete and share words about them, so they like that to be a little bit more personal with the restrictions we have in place right now.
I think that we have the facilities, and it wouldn't even necessarily need to use the stadium. We've got the great big beautiful PAC that we have that has the auditorium. We ran 563 kids through there for graduation. And again, our boys cross country team, they're going to state. Our football team made history, school history. Originally, I understood that, of course, typically it's the banquet. And I think that is what was causing the biggest thing, because you associate the word banquet as a social activity. This is not a social activity. It's an extension of a school-sanctioned, recognized part of the high school and or middle school experience. It couldn't be further from the truth. A social event is a gathering at a local restaurant or an off-site location, which I'm afraid is what is going to happen. And we're not going to be able to control it. If it's on school property in the PAC, we are able to control it, following the guidelines established by the local health department. We're doing that now with school. We're doing it, we've got kids there in study hall. We've got kids out all around for lunches. We're accomplishing it there. The kids are following the guidelines set forth. This recognition, it's different. These are events. It's closure, too, for a lot of our athletes. It's a season of their life. that's coming to a close and rewarding them for their years of hard work and sacrifice. I mean, to have that student athlete, just like our graduating class did, walk across the stage to the podium, and or even have the parents there to hand off that letter that they earned that year, their first letter or their fourth letter, or their all GCC medal, their Scholar Athlete Award. I mean, that is huge. And I understand, again, listening to the recommendations of the health department, but if we follow those same recommendations and accomplish it again, limiting the attendees to just the parents. These athletes have been around each other for the past 3 months. They're in their little pod already. These parents have been around each other for the last 3 months. They're in their pod. I think it's something that we can accomplish, and I think we definitely need to look at it and consider it.
I just want to make clear that our intent is to recognize our students. I fully well know it's through a different format, but our students definitely deserve the recognition, and we are going to give that to them. In terms of graduation, and I don't want to minimize our athletic programs, but to me, graduation is a monumental milestone in somebody's life, and we did do everything we could to make sure we could provide that milestone for our students, and it involved weeks of planning and 4 long days and long nights to be able to get everybody through there. I do have a meeting with the health director tomorrow, so I can bring this up. The other superintendents will be there as well. Like I said, Black River probably needs to have more conversation now, but I will bring it up tomorrow.
I think that, and I understand that graduation was definitely a production. I'm not talking about recording it or putting a CD together or anything else like that. I'm just saying using our facility and letting it happen, just in our facility, not recording it or anything.
I had one question. I know it's not on the agenda, if it's okay. Where are we at with winter sports? I had, the other night I had a parent asking me if OHSAA was going to allow things like basketball inside to be played. And of course, I said, as far as I know, yes, but I haven't heard anything different than that. Have you heard anything new?
Yeah, that's actually a good question. The OHSAA has not released a lot of guidelines in terms of winter athletics. The state, all schools in the state are looking for a more formal decision in terms of winter athletics. We have already started proceeding with our athletic programming for the winter season in a similar format to what we did back in the summer at the beginning of the fall season, working with small groups of students, keeping them in pods, keeping them separated as much as we can. In terms of rumors, I've heard that the Ohio Athletic Association probably won't release anything formal until they wrap up all the fall sports, the playoffs and everything like that. There's been rumors about them pushing the winter season back and starting it like in January or February. I haven't heard that from the OHSA though, so I don't know how legitimate that is. It's been talk though.
Well, Mr. Sable, thank you for allowing us to talk about this evening. And I know just from the cross country team, the boys team, they had over 60 runners. And in the years past, when you get family members, we would easily fill the cafeteria. So I think it's important to follow the health department's recommendations, have a safe environment. The track coaches last spring did a video. It was highly personal, where they highlight each of the seniors, and they have recorded it. So families could watch it at their convenience. And I thought it was actually more personal probably than it would have been in person. It was very nice and very well done. And I think these are strange times, and we need to do what we need to do to keep everybody safe. So thank you.
Mr. Sable, what is the seating capacity of the PAC?
It's a good question. I know I've been told it before.
I'd have to look for you given COVID because it's a lot less. Like I know we just did a concert and I think we had 160 tickets, I think, for Showtime. So again, I think too we need to keep in mind, I'm not sure that the coaches and athletes, I mean, I know are in favor of doing it that way. I don't know. I guess we'd have to ask. I don't know. But I would want to ask. I do think there was a lot of positive responses about the Zoom meetings because they did like the, you could talk about each athlete and the personal interaction with it because they had the time to do that. So I don't know that people want to sit in the PAC for 2.5 hours. Now that's cross country because that's what I'm from, or basketball. It's just a longer time to sit. Football would be hundreds of kids. So yeah, I'd be interested to hear from the athletes and their families too.
It's interesting because, I mean, in the past, cross country has always had banquets, right? Football's always had banquets.
Cross country doesn't have food. They don't have a banquet per se. Just,
Right. And that's what I'm saying. You take food completely out of the equation anyway for the other programs that typically would have food. And I think, I don't know, in my opinion, talking, I'm not quite sure talking into a computer can be the same personable experience as when you're I'm talking to everybody here and you're making the eye contact and the facial features and that whole in-person experience is, I don't think it can be achieved in the virtual environment.
And I just wanted to add my comment to this. I agree with the board comments, Val, Robin, Becky. I think it's important to recognize the kids and do it face-to-face safely, but somehow we need to make that happen. And thanks for asking the basketball question. I've had somebody ask me the same thing. So, and thank you for your answer. So, something to get. But yeah, for the recognition, I would agree with the board that in person. Just my comment. Thank you.
Yep, just Chris and policy.
Okay, so I think we're going to have flashbacks to back in the time when I would go through all the policies. So I think we're going to do this again just to give everyone in the community a review of the policies. We did a first reading last month, so next month you'll approve these. But in general, we're just giving the community a sense of what policies are up for renewal. So I'm just going to go over each of these. Amy has it pulled up and just what the changes are in each one. So if anyone from the policy committee wants to jump in, feel free to as well. So the first policy is 1520. It's employment of administrators. And this one was just revised. They call it a certain kind of error, but the word not was missing in the policy. So nothing substantial. It was basically a typo. 1530 is evaluation of principals and other administrators. This one is being revised because OTES is referenced in there, and there's really a separate teacher evaluation policy. So there is no reason to reference OTES, and student growth measures are no longer being used this year, so that's being removed as well. We often laugh at the policy committee. This policy, OTES, graduation, those get changed often every meeting, so we'll look at those. 2270 is religion in the curriculum, and this is being changed because of House Bill 164, and they're just looking at being more specific about where religion can and can't be practiced. It's not a substantial change that's going to affect practice at the high school or anywhere else, and it's not anything that's going to be something you can see in practice. But again, there's some language in there now that you cannot prohibit students from engaging in religious expression in the completion of homework, artwork, written or oral assignments. Interscholastic athletics. This reflects Ohio Revised Code changes that were recent due to COVID, and includes grade point averages and some things like that. Employment contract. Really, this is a cleanup, so it removes the list of administrators because they're covered in 1520. So the thousands are administrators, the 3000s are certified staff, so you don't need to reference them in both places. 5200 is attendance. This is kind of another one of those policies that's up every month, it feels like. But we are including a definition of a medical excuse, and then we are further defining remote learning so that we can clarify with the state what you can and cannot count as hours of attendance. 551702 is a sexual violence policy. That's being deleted and replaced with a Title IX policy that the committee will see for first reading very shortly, and it's due to the Title IX changes in the law. Removal, suspension, expulsion, and permanent exclusion of students. This is being changed to use the preponderance of evidence standard. So when we suspend students, when I hear suspension appeals, when Aaron hears expulsions, we're going to move to the preponderance of evidence standard. 6144 is investments. This will then include House Bill 251. I'm going to really quickly look, and Dave, I don't know if you want to talk a little bit about that. No, you don't want to? Okay. I know this is really exciting things at the end of a board meeting, but it adds a different kind of investment that we can put in. I think it's paper. No? Oh, I didn't. Okay, go
I
ahead.
believe it's, we could invest up to 10 years with government bonds.
Correct. I'm sorry, the bonds mature within 10 years from the date of settlement. Okay. And then student fees, fines, and charges. These are both about waivers and then waivers of fees. So this allows for online payment of fees, fines, and charges, and we had that in the past, but this just clarifies that. And it streamlines fees that may be charged and those that can be waived, especially if you're free and reduced lunch. Procurement of federal grants. This policy is one of the ones that the auditors often ask for, but it makes it clear when you have a federal grant what you can and can't use funds for, how you have to bid those federal grants, and the documentation you have to keep for those grants as well. And then finally, religious patriotic ceremonies and observances, again references House Bill 164, and again follows up with students have a right to include religious work in their assignments, and it talks about the flag and when the flag will be raised, and that saying the Pledge of Allegiance could be something that happens in school. So again, nothing earth-shattering in this group of policies, just important things, and I often try to put when they have to be adopted to maintain accurate policies, and also so we stay up to date.
Dr. Pollack, for that last policy, I also just wanted to mention that it also added that non-participating students are protected as well.
Yes, that was the other change. So if students don't participate in patriotic ceremonies or religious ceremonies, they're not consequenced. I should say religious, patriotic ceremonies.
Dr. Kwolek, I have a question on the interscholastic athletes, and it states that this student may have received failing grade in the previous. So it used to be that if a student had an F or was failing a class the previous quarter, they were ineligible to participate in athletics. So Ohio Revised Codes, they passed legislation.
Yeah, this is a result of COVID. So
Okay.
because of COVID and because of the online learning from the spring, that's a new piece. I'm guessing this isn't going to stay in place.
I was
but it
gonna
is
ask-
in place for now.
If you thought it was going to be permanent.
I don't think this will be permanent.
Okay.
I think the legislation was just through the end of the year,
At this
I
time it
believe.
is, yeah.
At this time.
Okay. I was trying to get online and pull up the Ohio Revised Codes that was, but I kept getting an error that the site was down. So I wasn't sure. And I'm glad that you attached the policies in public content so that they could be viewed. And are these the ones, because I on this particular one, that caught my eye, the interscholastic, because I was looking for it. It looks like there's a faint, on page 10, there was like a faint where it was maybe highlighted. Is that the policies that you had? Did you have any of the changes highlighted and it just didn't come through on the scan? I was curious, because then even
I
on
don't
the...
think so. I think Noreen did this, so I can ask her, but we would not have highlighted the changes.
Okay. Because I was just trying to go through and look to see where those changes applied. Because otherwise, I had to pull up board docs and pull up the policy that's on board docs right now, and then pull up this draft version and do a little, side-by-side comparison. And it was a little clumsy on that one, so.
Well, Mrs. Pavlik, the policy committee goes through these, and
Right.
that's the process we go through based on the recommendations. And like Dr. Kwolek said, a lot of these are based on legislation. We don't have a lot of choices or options, but we need to adopt them to be in compliance. Anytime, you're welcome to talk to Mr. Skidmore or I, as well as, since we both sit on the committee, if you have questions.
Sure, and I appreciate that. But I was just thinking from the community standpoint that if they wanted to go in and read that policy and see where it was changed at, that's why. So I thought it was a great thing that Dr. Kwolek attached the summary list as well as the policies. So thank you. All right. At this time, the superintendent does have some personnel action items.
As, there we go. It is recommended to the Board of Education to approve the following personnel items pending approval of all required documentation to the Department of Human Resources. And I do want to point out that many of these are subs which we are in need of.
I'll make a motion to approve this action item for personnel.
Second?
Any comments, questions? Mrs. Busby, Amy, comments or questions from the public? Okay, hearing none. Mr. Chambers?
Ms. Parkhurst.
Aye.
Mr. Ross.
Aye.
Mr. Hilberg. Mr. Skidmore.
Aye.
Ms. Pavlik.
Aye.
Thank you.
And the second action item is the cross-country field trip. As I mentioned at the beginning of the meeting, it is recommended that the Board of Education approve the following overnight field trips for the 1920 school year. I do want to point out that typically in a normal year, we have our athletes sharing rooms. We are looking at purchasing individual rooms to keep them separated for COVID purposes. That increases the amount of rooms from 8 to 13.
I make a motion?
I'll second.
I believe we need to change this to be the 2021 school year.
Sorry, that's me. I'll change it right now. That's on me.
I do not want to do 2020 over.
I just changed it. I also want to let you guys know the district's going to cover the difference in rooms, not the cross-country bucket. because the difference is due to COVID. It's not, and to keep kids safe, so.
Can we add that to the CARES account number in the general ledger there, Mr. Chambers? All right, so we, yeah.
Mr. Ross?
I want to wish the kids good luck, both boys and girls. Have a great race, and yes.
Ms. Pavlik?
I ditto on Mr. Ross's comments. Go get 'em bees. Yes.
Mr. Hilberg? Yes. Ms. Parkhurst?
Aye.
Mr. Skidmore?
Before I vote, I think we forgot to ask for public comment. I don't know. I'm sure there isn't any, but did
Yeah.
you? Not for this item? You don't see any comments? Aye.
Thank you.
Mr. Chambers, I'm sorry. I do need to, I just got a message from Mr. Hilberg regarding the recognition ceremonies. I would like to read his comments, if that's okay. Okay. I wanted to comment during tonight's work session about the recognition ceremonies. Unfortunately, by the time I got myself unmuted, the meeting had moved on. Our student athletes work hard to get through their respective seasons. Despite the current pandemic and out of respect for their achievements, I believe we have a responsibility to give them the recognition that they deserve, especially those that have made it to the state level. I agree that everyone needs to think outside the box to develop some type of program that still considers the recommendations of the health department. I look forward to seeing what compromise the district can come up with to give these student athletes their well-deserved recognition. Thank you. Thank you, Brian, for adding that. At this time, we've reached the public participation of the meeting. Community members wishing to address the board are asked to abide by the following guidelines. Attendees shall register their intention to participate in the public portion of the meeting upon their arrival at the meeting. After those that have registered have spoken, if time allows, the board president will ask for public participation from all other attendees. Please state your name, address, and affiliation. Please keep comments to a maximum of 3 minutes. No participant may speak more than once on the same topic unless all others who wish to speak on that topic have been heard. And all statements shall be directed to the presiding officer. No person may address or question board members individually. Mrs. Busby, is there any public participation coming in online?
No, Brian says it's just me and him.
Just, okay. All right. There is no executive session today, correct, Mr. Sable? Okay, so I make a motion to adjourn the work session.
Second?
Ms. Pavlik?
Aye.
Mr. Ross?
Aye.
Mr. Hilberg? Ms. Parkhurst?
Aye.
Mr. Skidmore?
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah.